Greetings, gentle listeners. If you enjoy this podcast, you may also like Brose, a mirthy talk show starring four bros who sip wine and consider questions submitted by you, the audience, about current events, pop culture, and which Muppet you should get tattooed on your back. Subscribe to Brose wherever you get your podcasts. That's Brose. Brose, the podcast for those who drink rosé.
Person in Person is brought to you by the Perineum Group, the only truly centrist news organization.
That's right, Greg. We're in the sweet spot between partisan extremes. When tain't the left and tain't the right.
It's Perineum.
What do
The Circumcellions.
have to do with the Enchanted Forest?
Could a parasite make you immortal?
What do the wheels on the bus do?
Are you hungry for Cablp?
Are you buying too many candles? Would you like to? The answers to all these questions, plus sports, emotional weather, and stayed up. That's tonight
On Person in Person.
Good evening, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome to Person in Person. I'm your neighborhood Gene Person.
And I'm your not neighborhood Greg Person.
No relation. Person in Person is a news show for people who don't like news shows, by people who don't like news shows. That's us.
Yep, we love quinoa and we hate news.
Yeah, quinoa's so good.
It is. I grubbed on like 1.5 pounds of quinoa for dinner. Quinoa
That's
and broccoli.
That's a bit too much quinoa for me, but I love the applications of quinoa. It's in some of my favorite dishes. Let's go ahead and get into tonight's story beats so we're not doing this intro banter for too long. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right.
Kevin Spacey is heading back to the silver screen in an Italian movie about an accused pedophile. It'll be his most challenging role to date because in this movie, the man is innocent.
Unfortunate news this week is the U.S. president has missed the deadline he'd outlined for serious police reform. Biden has announced that ignoring his campaign promises was just the first increment in his plan for incremental change, and that when he said Build Back Better, what he really meant was Build Back basically the same.
A man who went missing in Catalonia was found dead inside a dinosaur statue, apparently after getting stuck trying to retrieve his phone. The phone was not charged.
I'm liking these this week. After a 17-year hiatus, millions of cicadas are emerging, and one Georgia county is begging residents to please stop calling 911 over the insects. Apparently, they're so loud, citizens are confusing them with alarms. When asked for comment, the cicadas responded, whoop, 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 hoi, 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 boo, boo, boo.
Okay, so for context, folks, in his notes, Gene just wrote, I'm going to make some car noises here. And I thought, okay, fine. I did not realize that it was going to be a whole thing.
Let it never be said that Gene Person half-asses anything.
No, you whole-assed this thing. A 77-year-old Florida woman was arrested for assaulting and screaming racial slurs at a Burger King employee because she was upset about the thickness of the tomato on her Whopper. Obviously, the police report doesn't specify who she voted for, but I bet I can guess.
Yeah, a thicker tomato.
Folks, the tomatoes these days, they're too thin. You get a tomato, it's disgraceful, really. You know, used to be the tomatoes, you'd get them, they were so thick. It was beautiful.
Researchers have found that great white shark populations are increasing off the coast of California, increasing by as much as 35% in 10 years. One expert was quoted as saying, and the idea was, the shark nearest man, and then he'd start pounding and hollering and screaming, and sometimes the shark would go away. Sometimes he wouldn't go away. Sometimes that shark He looks right into you. Right into your eyes. You know the thing about a shark. He's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. When he come at you, doesn't seem to be living until he bites you, and those black eyes roll over white.
I didn't know you were going to do the voice. It's so good. Holy shit, that's good.
Well, let's go on to main news. I'm going to lead off our top story this week with Enchanted Forest. Enchanted Forest is Oregon's only real theme park, and it was created when Roger Toft, who worked for the Department of Transportation as a draftman and artist, wanted to spend more time with his family. So he started by purchasing 20 acres of land off of I-5 near Turner, Oregon for about $4,000 in 1964, and little by little built a theme park out of concrete and imagination. Enchanted Forest is all about fairy tales and nursery rhymes, and it's a uniquely Oregonian attraction. Does it crib from Disney a bit? Maybe at times. The Ice Mountain bobsleds are a little reminiscent of the Matterhorn, but they're also very different. For one thing, the cars are enclosed. For another, it's a pretty rough and tumble ride. No less fun, though. The haunted house at Enchanted Forest is legendary, and honestly not for the little ones. Also, it kind of smells funny in there. Don't expect huge thrills at the Enchanted Forest. The log ride is kind of short, and other rides are great, but they're not exactly on the same level. Enchanted Forest isn't about all that. It's about spending some time with your family in a fun place that has a fair amount of whimsy and doesn't break the bank. I love it there, and I'm really looking forward to the day that I can take little Jean to the park. But what does that have to do with
The Circumcellions? They called themselves the Agonistici. They were a sect of early Christians who campaigned against poverty, slavery, and debt, mostly in North Africa. And the reason they're remembered these days, though, is that they believed that martyrdom was the only sure path to salvation. So they would come up with opportunities to martyr themselves every chance they got. They would, for example, attack Roman legions on the road with big wooden clubs that they called Israelites to try to get the Romans to kill them. They would go into courtrooms and they would scream abuse at the judges, so the judges would order them executed. Sometimes, and this is, well, we don't know 100% that this is true. This was written by people who were critical of them, but apparently they would take turns pushing each other off cliffs.
Okay.
So, I've known about these guys for a while, and I've been fascinated by them because they actually start from it's a whole thing, the church politics of North Africa at that time. But they started from a fairly reasonable position that a lot of people held, and they just took it to a place where most people were like, no, we're fine, thanks. And surprisingly, there's none of them around today. They've all died out. So good job.
So, I mean, well, they accomplished their end game then.
Indeed.
So I can think of a couple of bridges between these two ideas right now. Number one is that when Roger Toft, it might be Tofty, I'm not sure. When he purchased his land, he was leveraging pretty much everything he owned to build Enchanted Forest, and he was pretty widely regarded as kind of a fool for doing it. They referred to the site where Enchanted Forest was eventually built as Idiot Hill. But it ended up being quite successful. So, I mean, that did end up... He sacrificed what he had in order to gain more, I guess. I don't know.
Are there any rides? Because I've actually never been to the Enchanted Forest, believe it or not. I've driven by it many times. Yeah,
that's crazy to me. Yeah.
Well, I never really liked rides as a kid, and so whenever my mom would be like, "Hey, do you want to go on some rides?" I'm like, pass.
Well, Enchanted Forest isn't really about the rides, though. Its biggest attraction is actually the Fairy Tale Village, which is it's a walk-through trail of fairy tales.
Do they have fair food? Do they have like kettle corn and elephant ears and stuff?
I mean, they have some things there. I'm not sure if they have specifically fair food, but I mean, I don't remember the snacks or concessions being bad in any way. They're one of the few parks where you can actually bring your own food, which is kind of nice. And they even have refrigerators, I think, that you can rent space in. They do have a great ice cream service.
Oh, really? Do they like make their own and have a wild number of flavors?
No, it's just straight up vanilla soft serve, but it like on a hot day after walking throughout this like concrete park, it's actually really, really nice. It's the spot.
Now, are there any rides at the Enchanted Forest where you fall to your death?
No. So there are only really, if you're above the age of like 4, there are only 4 rides at Enchanted Forest that you would go on. And one of them isn't even a ride. It's the haunted house, and that's a walkthrough attraction. And then they have a dark ride, which is far more high-tech than you would expect from the Enchanted Forest, but they invested in a high-tech dark ride that wasn't perhaps the wisest investment, because it's also a little bit hokey. And I love that about it. And then they have the roller coaster Ice Mountain bobsleds, which it's really funny. The cars are enclosed, and they have to be, because you go up this mountainside and through this cave, and the cave's ceiling is too low. If you were to stick your hands up, you'd be touching it before you fully extended your hands. And I think that's part of why they had to enclose the rides or the cars, because those things are propelled by a chain lift, but it could potentially cause someone injury or like rip your arm off or something if you were holding on tight. There are some other interesting features on that ride. I'm starting to go off the rails. I'm talking about roller coasters, which we know this is what I do. The other big ride is the log ride, which is a water coaster. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that type of flume ride, but it's half flume, half roller coaster. But it's unfortunately pretty short. It's just, you go up the lift hill, and then it's kind of like out and back style. You go down a certain ways, and it turns you around, and then you come back, and then you take one turn, and suddenly you're not in the water anymore. You're on the coaster part. And then you go down the big hill and you make the splash, and then it's over. Yeah.
But it's safe, though.
Everything there that I'm aware of is safe.
Now, this is a little further afield because they don't have one of these at the Enchanted Forest. It's never actually been built. But you have, I presume, because you're a roller coaster aficionado.
The suicide coaster?
You've heard of the... Yes. Yes.
Yeah, the
exactly.
euthanasia coaster. Yes, I have.
So if they built one of those, that would be a ride that a Circumcellion could go on.
And potentially legal in Oregon, because we do allow euthanasia.
But you would have to get a doctor's note to let you ride this roller coaster. You must be this tall and have a doctor's note.
Yeah, but we're not going to check for the doctor's notes. We don't even check for vaccines. That's
true. And I mean, if you're going to an amusement park without a vaccine, you're basically committing suicide anyway.
I don't know that Enchanted Forest is actually open right now during the pandemic. I know they've been very cautious. But
most places in the state are, because they've been compelled to be. Now, is it fair to say that the Enchanted Forest is a little piece of heaven on earth?
I mean, in my opinion, it certainly is. It's a wonderful place.
And on that same stretch of the interstate, there's that wonderful bakery, the Heaven on Earth Bakery. Have you been there?
That's so much further south.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're driving north, you'll hit them both eventually. Right here in this little stretch of the earth, we've got our own little piece of heaven. And it feels like, in the words of Belinda Carlisle, ooh, heaven is a place on earth. And I feel like maybe that's what the Circumcellions weren't getting. They were killing themselves to find a better place.
They just should have moved to Oregon.
They should have just moved to Oregon. It's really nice.
It is. It is a beautiful state. It's wonderful to live here. I really appreciate my home state a lot. It's going to be hard to roast it when it comes to state up.
I can do that with my eyes closed. No problem.
I'll be able to do it.
But
I'll be able to do it.
I mean, like, they didn't have the things that we had in ancient Rome, you know.
Right.
They didn't have the Dent Kush. They didn't have cinnamon rolls that are literally the size of birthday cakes. I'm just saying.
So you're positing that, they were killing themselves over this idea of heaven that they could have had if they just waited a few centuries and moved to the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, if they had moved to a country
and paid
that they
a
didn't
nominal
know
fee, because really I guess the cinnamon rolls are kind of spendy, which is an Oregonian term meaning pricey. But the cost of entry into Enchanted Forest is really, really affordable. And then you have to buy the tickets for the rides, but those are actually pretty darn affordable too.
I mean, amusement parks anywhere you go are going to be a little spendy.
Yeah, but Enchanted Forest is really not. Cost of admission, children 2 and under are free. 3 to 12 are $13.75. Teenagers and adults are $15.25. That is nothing.
That's really nothing. Like, because you're not paying to go on the rides also, right?
You are paying to go on the rides.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a little bit more comparable to other amusement parks, but that's still pretty good.
It's not, though. Like, the cost of getting into Disneyland for a day is over $100 now, or near that.
Yeah, but Disneyland is Disneyland.
Well, right. But the ride tickets are really affordable. They're $1 each. It's 2 to 4 tickets per ride. For $4, you can ride the log ride, or the dark ride, or the roller coaster. $3 to go in the haunted house. And then most of the kiddie rides are $2. So, I mean, that's comparable to, your average carnival.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just saying, if you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to be a martyr and go to heaven, just relax.
Right.
Okay. Get on I-5 and grab a cinnamon roll or a slice of pineapple upside down cake. That one's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And, go to Seven Feathers and go to Enchanted Forest.
I think we've cracked it. It's on to breaking news.
All right, folks. I want to talk to you tonight about 2 species, Temnothorax nylanderi and Anomotania brevis. Now, the first is a species of ant that lives in Western Europe, first discovered in Germany, and the latter is a tapeworm that lives in its guts. Now, what's interesting is that this tapeworm, when it infects the ant, rather than hurting it, it hijacks the genes in the endocrine system of the ant to make it functionally immortal, eternally beautiful, and take away its ability to experience stress or fear.
Wow.
Yeah,
Where do I get one of these?
That's literally what I said is as I was reading this, because I learned about this from The Atlantic and then I did some more research. I thought, if I eat these ants, how many ants do I need to eat? Right. Where do I get them? How much do they cost? But see, what's cool is these Instagram ants, these influencer ants, they don't work. They are pampered by the other ants who are so captured by their beauty, and we don't know if it's because of the way that they look or if they're exuding some kind of pheromone as a result of the parasite or what. Mm-hmm. But all the other ants in the colony are like enslaved by these, phenomenally beautiful, eternally youthful ants. And to give you an idea, when I say that they're immortal, worker ants generally will live a few months. Mm-hmm. These ants will live between 10 or 20 years and maybe longer.
Wow.
Yeah. But so the end goal of all this from the tapeworm's perspective is because all the colony's resources are going to pamper these god ants, they're more vulnerable to predators, and because the infected ants don't feel anything but a kind of idle curiosity for anything that happens. When the woodpeckers that eat the ants come and bust up their little ant colonies, then the tapeworm finishes its life cycle in the woodpecker. So that's the end goal. But what I'm saying is, I'm very disappointed that no human parasites turn us into ageless, carefree supermodels.
Right, but then there's the other side of that coin where it's The Last of Us.
Oh, you mean like...
Yeah, the fungal parasite, that the cordyceps that turns us all into mushroom zombies.
Yeah, and I mean, that probably is going to happen someday. There will be a zombie virus.
I don't know that it'll be a virus, but there's plenty of mechanisms for that to happen. It could be a parasite. It could be a virus. It could be a fungal infection. There's dozens of ways these things can spread.
But if there's ever any way that I can take, some kind of a pill or a parasite or something to turn me into an immortal, beautiful thing that exudes pheromones that make people want to lavish attention on me, so that I never have to work again, yeah, please, thank you.
Yeah, because on the one hand, you're immortal. On the other hand, you got to watch out for that Kurgan.
I would just wear a big ring of metal around my neck.
Oh yeah, that's a solution.
Why don't they do that?
I don't know.
Stupid.
Apparently, there's a reboot of Highlander coming, and guess who signed on to do it?
Who?
Henry Cavill. It's Henry Cavill.
Okay, is he going to do a Scottish accent?
I don't know. I don't know if it's even based on the MacLeod clan. I don't know any of the details except that he's potentially attached to it.
Well, if there's no MacLeods, I'm not going to watch it. I'm sorry.
As far as Highlander goes, I really feel like there can be only one, but...
We haven't talked about it for a while, but Pun Jail still exists.
Does it? Doesn't really, Greg?
You can go there, and if Enchanted Forest is heaven on earth, Pun Jail is hell on earth. So
really?
Watch yourself.
Really, Pun Jail is a mega church. Because that's my description of hell on earth.
Ironically, but appropriately.
All right, my story. As the parent of a toddler, a lot of the stories that I ended up seeing, particularly this week, they either horrified me or filled me with anxiety. But one story this week filled me with kind of a lot of laughs. So this school bus in Columbia, South Carolina was going about its business picking up kids to take them to school when it was hijacked by an escaped army trainee named Jovan Colazo. Once on the bus, however, things took an amusing turn. Colazo was bombarded with curious questions from the kids on board. Are you a soldier? Why are you doing this? Are you going to hurt us? Are you going to hurt our driver? Colazo said no to the last two, but the questions, they kept coming. Because that's what kids do. And I can only imagine what kind of questions kept coming. What's your favorite color? Do you like Spider-Man more than Batman? Have you ever seen a horse? What kind of army man are you? And so on. Eventually, Colazo had enough of the questions and escaped the hijacked bus. So the article I found didn't mention whether or not Colazo was apprehended, but it's like a scene from a madcap comedy, and I am here for it.
I really like this story.
It makes me really happy.
I am baffled as to why he would steal a school bus.
I know. It seems like if you're going to do like a hijacking, there's gotta be a different way to go.
I mean, literally the worst possible vehicle.
Right, because
you could steal.
You get caught with it, you're facing some massive charges.
And school buses have a governor on them. They top out at like 35 miles an hour.
Right.
You are not escaping anywhere in a school bus. And what are you gonna try some evasive driving? How do you think a school bus handles at speed?
Right. I don't know.
I can barely stand to be in a car with like 2 children.
I mean, I'm riding around occasionally with one, and it's a bit much.
Yeah, I mean, bus drivers are the real heroes. That's item 1.
Yeah, they're pretty great.
This guy, he has the most airtight insanity defense just because of the nature of the crime.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to sports.
All right, for sports, I'm really excited about this one. I want to tell you about one of my favorite athletic competitions of all time. Now, if you were watching TV in the 90s and you weren't a total dweeb, you remember the totally awesome show that ran from 1989 to 1996, whipped ass every single minute. You know it, you love it. I'm talking about American Gladiators.
I did love American Gladiator back then.
Of course you did. The show was great. It's amazing. Okay, so if you're young or just lived under a rock or your parents hated you and didn't want you to enjoy things, what it is amateur athletes from all over the country competed against professional gladiators, and the gladiators had sweet ass names like Blaze, Nitro, Turbo, Laser.
Mm-hmm.
And they competed against them in a variety of physical challenges, tests of strength, strategy, and agility. They had names like Powerball, Assault, the Joust, which was everybody's favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And, at the end of it, you would go against other competitors in a sweet-ass obstacle course called the Eliminator. Now, every week you would see a new batch of like teachers and gardeners and lifeguards going against these absolutely fully juiced California muscle freaks.
And I want to highlight, when you say fully juiced, you are talking steroids. There were steroids for sure.
100%. Like, I got eyes.
Yeah.
Those people were roided to the gills, and you know what? They looked great. They looked fantastic. That probably American Gladiators was the beginning of my appreciation for extremely muscular women. But that's neither here nor there. But you didn't often see the amateurs get over on the Gladiators, but when they did, it was sweet.
Yeah, that was always my favorite part, is if someone managed to really, really make it work. It was like jumping out of your chair excited television.
Right. And it's still great. You can actually still watch the old episodes, various streaming services. They were on Hulu for a while. Some of them were on Netflix. From what I understand now, they're on Pluto TV. I don't know what that is, but I'm thinking about downloading it just to watch American Gladiators.
It's a free ad-supported television app. I have it, and they've got all kinds. They have an MST3K channel on Pluto TV.
Nice.
Yeah, it's worth it to download it. Is there any chance that they might be rebooting American Gladiators again?
I am glad you asked. You might remember way back in 2008, they did reboot it for one season. Hulk Hogan and Layla Ali hosted. That was great, but for some reason it didn't catch on the same way that it had in the 90s. But there was a plan to reboot it for the 2019-2020 season, but then of course COVID.
Right.
So that put that on hold for a while, but from what I was reading, there are plans to bring it back very soon.
Very good. I would really look forward to watching that again and seeing what a new take on it would be. I know that they announced plans for, I think it might be Netflix, to reboot Legends of the Hidden Temple as a game show for adults.
Okay, I'm into that.
Which I think is brilliant because it cashes in on that nostalgia factor. And it really was a fun show.
I mean, so many kids back in the day, not to be this guy, because like I'm very nearly 40 and you're over 40. And so I don't want to refer to us as 90s kids because we're not kids in any sense.
Right.
But when we were kids, we all dreamed of facing down Olmec in the Hidden Temple.
So not me, actually. Here's the thing. I was already a bit too old for the show when it was on. So my interest had gone from, Nickelodeon to other channels at that point. For me, it was always wanting to run around the Funhouse in J.D. Roth's Funhouse. I don't know if you're familiar with that game show, but it was very like Legends of the Hidden Temple in a sense.
No, but I am familiar with Eli Roth's Funhouse.
Yeah, well, that's a Funhouse nobody wants to go with.
I don't want to run around in that one. But that was the one. I wanted to be on that one. I didn't want to be on Nick Arcade because it didn't look like they were actually having any fun.
Yeah, I remember there was Guts. I remember that one. That was a very American Gladiators-like contest, if I recall.
Oh, it was literally inspired by American Gladiators. The concept behind it was they wanted to do American Gladiators for kids.
Yeah, okay.
So,
all right. Well, you know what they should reboot completely for adults? Double Dare.
Yes, 100%.
I'd be on that so quickly.
Oh my God, I want to get Goopy in that slime so bad.
Dude, you and I, dream team. The persons. Let's do this. We
would destroy.
I'm not so sure in the physical challenges that we would come out on top, but in all the any trivia they throw at us, we're going to do great.
Well, see, that's what we got to do is we crush the trivia, make the other teams do the physical challenges, let them get all goopy.
Yes. Yeah. So the tapeworm model of game shows. It's great.
Indeed.
All right. It's time for the emotional weather. This week we have chosen sickly, prickly, and pickly. I'm going to go ahead and lead off my sickly story. An Australian hiker stumbled across a bizarre, alien-looking growth in the ground, a bright red growth that looked like something out of Resident Evil, and described the smell, which you could pick up as much as a meter away, as similar to the sickly sweet scent of a rotting corpse. In photographs provided, he even pointed that flies were landing on the growth. Eventually, a botanist identified the item. It's a rare form of the stinkhorn fungus. This version grows in kind of a starfish shape, but this thing was like bright red. It was really an impressive specimen.
Yeah, I went and looked up pictures of it after you told me about it, and it really does look, it's a bizarre alien kind of a thing.
It definitely looks alien, for sure.
For my sickly weather, I bag on the British retailer Marks & Spencer all the time because they do so much tacky, tasteless stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, naturally, I was going to get around to Percy Pig someday. Percy Pig, for those of you who, like me, are blessed not to live in the UK, is a kind of a gummy candy that is sold at Marks & Spencer, and they really want him to be a huge brand and a cultural icon. So they make Percy Pig flavored everything. They make Percy Pig soda. They make Percy Pig sandwich cookies. They make Percy Pig ice cream. And it's just real gross, all the things they want you to have Percy Pig in. But I'm just saying, I still got all these SpongeBob popsicles to get through. I don't really have time to adopt another candy icon.
Yeah, stop trying to make Percy Pig happen, Marks & Spencer. It's never going to happen. Prickly. According to experts, global deserts are being stripped bare of rare cactus specimens thanks to global cactus trafficking, in which private collectors pay black market prices for the specimens. How big a deal is this? Well, it does take a toll. Over 30% of the world's nearly 1,500 cactus species are threatened with extinction. Unscrupulous collection is the primary driver of that decline, affecting almost half of imperiled species. It's a serious matter, to be sure, and authorities are only now starting to become aware of just how big this black market is. As with any kind of transaction, collectors need to be aware of who they're making deals with, because a few pricks can spoil it all for the rest of us.
That is an acceptable pun. I will not press charges for that one.
Good.
Now, maybe you know the answer to this. Is there any indication of why people want these cactuses, these rare cacti?
I think it's that same motivating driver that causes people to collect rare flowers, rare animals.
Rare Pokemon.
Right.
You just got to catch them all.
Exactly.
Well, for my prickly weather, I want to talk to you about your friend and mine, the echidna, one of Australia's wildest monotremes, God's way of telling us things could have been a lot weirder. Now, there's a recent research on the echidna. Now, you probably know already, if you're a freak like us, that the echidna's penis has 4 heads. If you haven't seen it, don't look it up. It looks fucked up and it will haunt your dreams.
Yeah, it's a pretty terrifying looking member.
But what they've discovered is that they can only ejaculate out of 2 of the heads at a time.
Okay, so it's it's like a whack-a-mole game.
Yeah, well, and they get to pick which side.
Okay.
So it's either the ones on the left hand or the right hand side.
So it's like a very simple whack-a-mole game.
And the paper I was reading that explained it, they did explain a little bit about why this might be the case, but by that point my brain had already turned off and I was like, nope, peace, I'm out. I'm not learning anymore, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep saying whack-a-mole.
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 You know, whack-a-mole is actually one of my favorite condiments on like a taco or a burrito or some nachos.
Yeah, it's nice.
You get that fresh
You get the avocados right when they're at the perfect ripeness. Oh, that whack-a-mole is delicious. All right, Pickly. Brewmate is said to be releasing a new hard seltzer flavor, and it's pickle. It's a dilly of an idea, and apparently it started out as an April Fool's joke. But the public clamored for the drink to actually exist, so I guess now it does. Insert Ian Malcolm quote here.
See, I think this is actually a good idea, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. If there's a market for it, sure, make it, and people will enjoy it, and they'll probably get some extra electrolytes if they're using actual brine or something. I don't know.
Well, I drink cucumber seltzer all the time, and I love it.
Well, and I drink hop water on occasion, so I mean, it's not too big a stretch to think that I might enjoy a hard pickle seltzer.
No, it's like a pickleback. You know, you take your shot of Jameson's, you take your shot of pickle, and you're good.
Yeah, pickleback.
Pickleback
Look at this pie in a draft.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did that.
All right.
Every time it makes me laugh.
Okay, what's your pickly story?
Now, summer's approaching, so it's getting into melon season, and I want to remind you all out there, every single bit of a watermelon is perfectly edible. You can eat the rind, you can eat the seeds, and in fact, the rind makes a great pickle. If you're in the South right now, you may have had pickled watermelon that's like the canned style pickle. If you're me, you don't like to mess around with pickling apparatus, so you make a quick pickle. Now what I do is, I take the watermelon rind, I chop it up into bite-sized chunks, and I throw it in a tub with some sugar, some vinegar, mostly water, a little bit of soy sauce, and then maybe some chili. And I just let it sit. You don't have to let it sit for days and days. Let it sit for like a couple hours or overnight, just to let that flavor permeate in there. You still want it to be super crunchy. And
now this is really brilliant. I've never thought of pickling watermelon rind, but I would love to try this.
Oh man, I actually had a pickling disappointment yesterday because I bought the watermelon with the express purpose of eating the delicious flesh and then pickling the rind. But in these newfangled watermelons that they have in the stores these days, they have basically hybridized out the rind.
Oh, so there was no delicious rind for you to enjoy.
There wasn't. I mean, there was all fruit in there, so I wasn't like super mad. But I was actually looking forward to enjoying my pickled rind. So I'm going to have to get a different watermelon variety next time that's going to give me some more rind.
You got to go tradish with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get like the 15-pound watermelon because I can't eat it all, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, for sure. As you know, every week, our investigative team uncovers a detailed and harrowing story on food crime. And I'm sure this week, Greg Person has another one of these stories for us. Greg?
Folks, Dupree Satan has returned.
Oh, no, the hell you say.
I do indeed. Dupree Satan, the father of ideas so self-evidently stupid and bad, you shouldn't even be able to think them, but that somehow become reality thanks to the sustained effort and investment of a staggering number of people. In this case, Dupree Satan has given us a restaurant. It's called, and I'm just guessing here, Cablp, because it's spelled Cablp.
This answers so this may be a guess, but I was wondering how you pronounce that.
Well, I'm going to kind of spoil it a little bit because the press release says you're supposed to pronounce it Cablp.
Okay.
There's nothing to suggest that it's pronounced Cablp.
Okay.
Because there's not enough vowels. It's just Cablp.
Yep.
Which stands for, get ready, this is going to beat the Rocky Tonk. I think we're there. Criss Angel breakfast, lunch, and pizza.
Okay.
It's a restaurant owned and named by the mind freak himself.
Sure.
Now, he works in Vegas. He's a magician. Mm-hmm. Vegas is full of restaurants. So where do you think this restaurant is located?
Is it in Vegas?
Wrong, motherfucker. It's in Overton, Nevada. Population 1,700. 65 miles from Vegas.
65 miles from Las Vegas. Okay.
So you're a guy who works and lives in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
You live in a town that has like the highest number of restaurants per capita of any city in the world. And you're going to buy a restaurant in Overton, Nevada, over an hour away by car.
Mm-hmm.
Listen.
And you're going to call it Cablp.
You're going to call it Cablp. Now, listen, we don't need to clown on Criss Angel. For God's sake, look at him.
Right.
It would be cruel.
Mm-hmm.
But
it would be adding insult to injury, let's be honest.
Right. And so, in lieu of making fun of Criss Angel,
mm-hmm.
I do want to just share this message with our audience. If you have a rich friend who comes to you with the stupidest idea you've ever heard, an idea so stupid it doesn't even start with a word, don't just think about how to cut yourself the biggest slice of this idiot pie.
Right.
Okay? Try to convince your dumb friend to do something useful with his money and his life.
This may be my favorite food crime you've covered.
I mean, as soon as I saw the word Cablp, I was like, man,
yeah, it really tickled my funny bone.
I got to know the rest of this story.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to turn down the lights because it's time for the Podcast Shopping Network.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, darling. Honey, you know how it is. Late at night, when things get chill and there's something in the air. You light up some candles. Lots of candles. Probably hundreds of candles, but not vagina-scented candles. No. We're looking for explosions of a different kind, baby. But then, when the candles burn down, what do you got? A bunch of useless candles, that's what. Because when that melty wax settles at the top, there is no way to gain access to that wick again. You can try cutting through it, but you're just as likely to cut the wick. You can try melting it down, like with a lighter, I guess. But you're probably going to burn yourself. But baby, shh. There's an easier way. Just buy the candle quick. Now for only $25. You can live free of the burden of having to buy more candles constantly. And it's a good thing too, because when it gets dark, baby, we ain't got any other way to see. Candle Quick is, well, it's kind of like a little heated fondue. A little heated fondue of love that melts that wax right down. Quick, safe, and easy. So you can worry your pretty little head about other things. Like, is that curtain on fire? Jesus Christ! That curtain is on fire! Lucas, put it out. I don't know, get some water or something. Jesus Christ, do we need... Why do you need this many candles? It's 2021! Our next segment is Stayed Up. This week, next in line in the alphabetical list of states is Indiana.
Did you know Indiana looks just like Bart Simpson's head?
Does it?
Yeah, dude, look it up real quick.
Oh my god, it does!
Mm-hmm.
Indiana is Bart Simpson. Okay, great to know. Non-Edie, I Diana, and I Ian are all Indianagrams.
Did you know legally every other state is considered out Diana?
Did you know that Indiana is mostly known as Ohio's cousin? The one who is obsessed with Ayn Rand, sells shitty pot, and got that girl pregnant but refused to acknowledge his responsibility? You know, the one with the porn stash.
Fun fact, famous Indianan Larry Bird is actually a human being.
Which means Larry Bird is a liar.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana still holds a thin lead over Oklahoma and Alabama for most purchases of the Moo Mixer. Our final segment this week, as every week, is Person to Person and Person, where we share your valuable feedback with our audience. We've received a request this week from a Tim named Cork Dick, I assume that's a pseudonym, to write a haiku about colostomy bags. Happy to, Cork Dick. I present the following. The real party starts when the shit hits the fan, bro. Literally, bro. And I have also written a limerick, which I will now read for you. There once was a fella named Strauss who had a bit much of the souse. He shit on a cop, but that didn't stop the patrons of Kid Rock's Honky Tonk Rock and Roll Steakhouse.
Bravo. Corky, I have also written some poems for you, a haiku and a limerick. Here you go. Excuse me, waitress. Can I get a bag to go in, I mean. And the limerick. At the Rocky Tonk Steakhouse one night, two gentlemen got in a fight. The first one was pissed, but he just swung a fist, while his foe threw a bag of his shite.
That's beautiful. I love it. Do you have any topics you'd like us to write a haiku about? Send them our way. We'll write a haiku about the subject, and we might throw in that extra limerick as well. Folks, that's all the show we have for you tonight. We'd love to hear your feedback, and there are so many ways to give it to us. Send us an email, personinpersonshow@gmail.com. Drop us a voicemail, 541-249-5933. I think we might have that for one more week. Find us at Twitter, @AnchorPersons. Check out our website, personinpersonshow.com. Until next time, this is Gene Person saying you should always end a comedy set with a callback.
And this is Greg Person saying, Cablp. Good night.
Y'all know me, know how I earn a living. I'll catch this bird for you, but it ain't gonna be easy. Bad mole. Not like going down to the anthill and chasing termites and grasshoppers. This mole, swallow you whole. Little shaking, little tenderizing, and down you go. And we gotta do it quick. That'll bring back your tourists. Put all your businesses in a paying basis. But it's not going to be pleasant. I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, Chief. I'll find him for 3. But I'll catch him and kill him for 10. But you got to make up your minds. If you want to stay alive, then ante up. If you want to play it cheap, Be on welfare the whole winter. Now, I don't want no volunteers. I don't want no mates. There's just too many captains on this island. 10,000 for me by myself. For that, you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.